at this moment in hockey history, the Nashville Predators currently find themselves in 5th place in the Central Division after 21 games skated on the season. They have a record of 11-10-0. That's right, after 21 games skated, the Nashville Predators have a record of over 500. 22 points on the season as the Preds 8 points shy of the first place Colorado Avalanche and 6 points ahead of their next opponent, the 7th place in the Central Division, Minnesota Wild. Let's take a look at the entirety of the Central Division, the most updated standings and rankings, and talk to you from there. We'll start the microscope down into the Nashville Predators versus Minnesota Wild, first of 4 meetings of the season. Let's start at the top of the Central Division. First place overall, the Colorado Avalanche after 21 games skated, a record of 15-6-0. That's good for 30 points. The Dallas Stars are currently in second place. They've skated just 20 times. That's one fewer than all the teams around. They have 28 points. That has them 2 points behind the first place Colorado Avalanche. Winnipeg Jets are 12-7-2 at 26 points. That has them 4 points behind first place. The St. Louis Blues have skated in 21 games. They're 11-9-1, 23 points. Has them 7 points out of first. Then you'll find the Nashville Predators in 5th place with 22. The Arizona Coyotes also have 22 points, but they are in 6th place due to their record of being 10-9-2. Minnesota Wild are in 7th place with 16 points, and Chicago Blackhawks are in 8th and last place. And after the last couple of days they have, I don't anticipate they'll be doing a whole lot of climbing in the standings. 14 points, though, 8th place in the Central Division. Now, the Minnesota Wild have a record overall after 20 games skated of 6-10-4, 16 points. That has them 6 points behind the Nashville Predators, and they have just most recently made a coaching change. John Hines has already coached in one game. He'll be coaching in his second game as the brand new head coach of the Minnesota Wild. When the Minnesota Wild come here to Nashville, the Wild on the road have a record of 2-6-2. The Preds on home ice have a record of 8-4. On the season in its entirety, Minnesota has only scored 60 goals, while the Predators have scored 70. And in the goals against category, the Minnesota Wild have given up 78 goals against, while the Preds have given up only 66 on the season. Now, this is the first of 4 regular season meetings between the Nashville Predators and the Minnesota Wild. Next time they will meet will be in January, and it will take place on the 25th. The Preds will make their first visit of 2 to Minnesota, and then the 29th of February, the Nashville Predators will welcome back Minnesota for the second and final time this regular season at Bridgestone Arena. Then March the 10th, we'll see the Preds go to Minnesota for the second time this season, the 4th and final regular season matchup between these Central Division rivals. Now, after the Preds wrap up this game against the Minnesota Wild, Saturday they'll host the New York Rangers, then immediately jump on a plane Sunday and go to Buffalo to face off against the Sabres. Tuesday in Chicago to face off against the tumultuous Blackhawks. On December the 7th, Tampa Bay comes to Nashville, and then on December 9th, the Preds are in Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. Now, for the Minnesota Wild, let's take a look at their most recent stretch of action, their most recent 5 games. On the 18th of November, it was a 2-1 shootout loss versus the Ottawa Senators, and on the 19th, a 4-3 overtime loss versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Those were in the Global Series, so a big travel experience for the Minnesota Wild, and they took the L in both of those games, but were able to get 2 out of a possible 4 points. On the 24th of November, a 3-2 loss versus the Colorado Avalanche. On the 26th of November, a 4-1 loss at Detroit, and that was it. It was time to make a coaching change. John Hines installed behind the bench for the next game, which took place on 11/28, which was a 3-1 win versus the St. Louis Blues. Gustafsson and net went 23 out of 24, and he picked up the victory. Injury update for the Nashville Predators. Only 2 names on the injury list at this moment in time. Novak is on injured reserve, and Glass is on injured reserve. Stastny has been sent back to the Milwaukee Admirals. When it comes to the matchups and the numbers and the rankings between these two teams, the Nashville Predators might surprise you to see 3.33 goals per game is 10th best in the NHL. So the Predators have a top 10 offense right now in the NHL. In the goals for category on the other side of the ledger for the Minnesota Wild, 2.95 goals per game is 19th overall in the NHL. In the goals against category, 3.14 against per game for the Nashville Predators. It's 16th overall in the league, right there in the middle of the pack, while 3.80 for Minnesota is 31st in the league, one spot from the bottom. So they're giving up 3.8 goals per game. In the shots for category, the Predators have generated 31 on net per game. That is 16th best in the NHL. 31.1 for the Minnesota Wild. That is 15th best in the NHL. When it comes to the shots against category, the Preds are giving up 30.3 per game. That is 17th overall in the league. And the Minnesota Wild, 30.6 shots against per game, is 19th in the league. Special teams. Let's start on the Minnesota side of things. Power play, 16% conversion rate is 24th overall, 12 out of 75. The Predators are converting at 20%. That's 17th, 17 out of 85 opportunities. When it comes to the penalty kill, the Nashville Predators finally found an opponent that they are a little bit better than statistically in all the different metrics for the PK. 33.5% is the Preds' kill rate, 28th overall in the NHL. They have given up 18 power play goals against, but Minnesota Wild are actually worse in all of those statistical metrics. 68.5% is their kill rate. They are 32nd and dead last in the NHL, and they have given up 23 power play goals against. That is a massive, massive number. Now, when it comes to every team in the NHL full of high-skilled individuals, so we always like to talk about the top 5 scorers for each team. Let's start with the visiting Minnesota Wild. Why not? Zuccarello, 5 goals, 17 assists for 22 points overall. Matt Zuccarello, no matter where he plays, no matter where you put him, he seems to find success. 17 assists, paces the Minnesota Wild at this point in the season, as well as his 22 points. Eriksson Ek typically has good games against the Nashville Predators. His 11 goals pace the Minnesota Wild. 7 assists added to that for 18 total points. Kaprizov, 6 and 12 for 18, always dangerous. Hartman, 7 and 4 for 11 points, and Rossi, 6 and 5 for 11. Over on the Nashville Predators, the home team side of things, Philip Forsberg continues to lead the team in scoring, and if he keeps up this type of pace, he is going to lead the team in scoring all season long, and he is going to possibly break records for the team. Forsberg, 12 goals now, 15 assists now, 27 total points. His 12 goals, his 15 assists, and his 27 points. All 3 of those categories are team lead for Philip Forsberg. O'Reilly has 10 goals, the only other player on the Preds with double digits in goals at this point in the season. 9 assists added to that for 19 total points. The captain, Roman Josi, is heating up as of late. 4 goals, 12 assists now for 16 points. Nyquist, 3 and 13 for 16. Tommy Novak out on injured reserve, but still 5th on the team in scoring with 6 goals and 6 assists for 12 total points. Anticipated matchup, expected matchup between the Nashville Predators and the Minnesota Wild. Marc-Andre Fleury for the Minnesota Wild on the season, 3-4 and 2.875 save percentage, 3.46 goals against average. So much like UC Saros, the numbers just aren't really there for Marc-Andre Fleury, but still a capable netminder, and anytime can easily take a game from another team. UC Saros now the win-loss record looking much better, 8-9-0, and the rest of the numbers starting to look a little bit better as well. A 900 save percentage, a 2.99 goals against average, certainly looking a lot better than where UC Saros was about 4 starts ago. So the Nashville Predators are clearly trending up in many different places. A 6-game winning streak, and they will take that up against the Minnesota Wild with a fresh coach, John Hines, behind the bench that everybody in Nashville is very familiar with. We'll see how the Nashville Predators can work things out right here. No matter what, though, the Nashville Predators are 11-10-0. That means 1 game over 500 after 21 games. So a quarter of the way through the season, Nashville Predators have a winning record and are competing in the Central Division, only 8 points behind the first place Colorado Avalanche. That has you all set for the Preds and the Wild. We've got to get to the Rebirth Sports full game recap. Preds versus Pens. We had a wild one at Bridgestone Arena. We need to talk about it. Give us 10 minutes. We'll give you the entire game right after this break, right here on the Renegades of Puck podcast.